All right, guys, welcome back to Tyler's Yarns. Welcome back to another podcast. Fortunately, Tyler is sick today, so I'm going to stand in for him. Our guest for today is Stu. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Stu. I'm one of the co-owners of Official Vintage. You might have seen me on a few other podcasts recently. Yeah. And I'm one of the pickers for Official Vintage, so yeah.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of what we're going to get into about today. So we're just going to get into what has the journey been like for you, like picking vintage throughout the years. But first, what's one good thing that's happened to you this week?
One good thing is we're just finalising a new venture within Official Vintage. It's going to coincide with the current business, so we're pretty excited about
secret.
that. Top secret.
Super secret. What's one good thing that happened to me this week? It hasn't happened yet, but I'm going to go and give blood on Saturday, so that should be cool. I've heard there's a bit of a shortage with blood at the moment, so that's something I'm going to do. But let's get straight into picking vintage, what the podcast is about. So how did you get into picking vintage? I know that you're one of the main pickers at Official Vintage.
Yeah, that's right. It all started probably just from personal pieces I used to pick, especially when I was younger. Like I grew up in like 80s, 90s. So it was pretty much my era on the kind of clothing which has kind of come back in now and what people are after. So it's quite good experience I've got to bring all the nice pieces that I remember and bring them into the store. So
so you were a bit of a collector back then?
Yeah, so what I used to do is just go out and buy stuff I really liked. And it's mainly just pieces like band tees and surf stuff.
So what type of band tees did you kind of collect?
Yeah, so a lot of I was into a bit of like heavy metal, like Guns N' Roses, Red Hot Chili Peppers, AC/DC, Nirvana.
Yeah, that's all
Pearl Jam.
Really popular now as well, coming into.
Yes, a lot of celebrities are really getting back into the band tees at the moment. So all the ones that I used to collect are kind of all coming back. And people wanting to wear those rarities.
Yeah. And I know that you're like really into surf stuff. You used to collect that as well.
Yeah, that's right. I'm really like a lot of the surfing brands. Probably one of my favorite is a bit of an unusual one is like Ocean Pacific, which is like a US one. It's not like highly
it's
rated.
Not like the Quicksilver or Billabong kind of stuff you see now.
Yeah. Even like the Ron John, which is another, it's just like got crazy designs, a bit more cartoony, like graphics on them. So I like that kind of surf stuff, which is a little bit unusual, a bit harder to find. Not like everyone's into it, but I just think they're a little bit more unique. Yeah, it's just kind of like your own kind of style as well.
And we kind of see all of your style coming through the store as well. We do get a lot of surf stuff now. Like we're getting a lot more surf stuff. I love the Ron John tees as well. I think they look really cool. When I was in the US, I saw a lot of them and I thought they were really cool tees. Where would you kind of find all your tees back then when you were collecting?
A lot of it was I'd be just going around like op shops. There wasn't as much clothing in op shops back then because a lot of the stuff was still made in like Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
There wasn't as much, so it was kind of a bit of a thrill to find stuff when you did see it.
Yeah.
I'd kind of be going through op shops, just little markets, even just friends. Like we used to trade, like someone finds something cool and just going, oh yeah, we'll swap like tees or something like that because they wanted something out of my closet or something. So that's how it kind of really started. Just
going to like little op shops, and then I'm guessing it was probably a little bit harder to find the wrap tees, the band tees that you said that you used to collect. What about those? Could you find those in op shops or not really?
Not really. You'd find a few like random ones, but even back then, a lot of this stuff was even new coming out. So the stuff that they were producing is the vintage of today that I was collecting. So some of the stuff in my closet is from the actually original tees and sweaters and clothing of it was actually just made.
It was just the fashion of the day. Yeah.
Which is it's kind of a cool
20
thing
years
now.
ago.
Yeah.
Longer.
Getting old.
Awesome. So as you started to kind of start this business venture with Tyler, you got back into picking vintage. And how did you pick vintage when you started this company?
Yeah, it was very similar to when I first started, just on a bit bigger scale almost.
Yeah.
We still went to op shops at the beginning, going to like Camberwell markets, or pretty much at garage sales, and just going through people's boxes of like clothing and getting stuff super cheap. You pick up things for like $1, $2.
Yeah.
So, that's how.
Now you're finding things for like $25 if you're lucky.
Yeah, like prices of vintage is going through the roof.
Yeah.
Even just, for, people just going out trying to buy anything now, like prices are going crazy. So it's getting harder and harder to source your product now.
Did you ever go overseas, like when you first started, to get, say, more vintage or different types of vintage?
Yes, they were like probably a lot of my first personal trips as well. So just going to Japan, I've got like a brother over there, so I'd go through the markets and he'd show me around and I'd just be picking there. And then I'd go to London, go to like the Portobello Road markets, the Camden markets. They've all got nice, cool stuff, a lot of original pieces.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of started collecting a lot more stuff. And
I could imagine that going through the markets in Japan was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Just like the stuff that they wear compared to kind of Australian style is just like nuts, I think. What was your thoughts on that? Just like their style?
I think they're definitely like way ahead of the curve on style wise.
Yeah.
I reckon like 2 years in advance. So whatever's happening in Japan, a lot of it's going to be already a big thing in like Australia.
Yeah.
In 2 years' time. So always look out for trends. That's how I buy now as well. Always looking for the next trend. Even the US is another market.
Yeah.
Which is, like probably about a year in front of us. So it gives us a good perspective of what could be coming into the market.
So kind of at the start, you would just, for your personal trips going over there, you would just go to the markets. And I'm guessing that over time, you needed to buy a lot more stock when you came into official vintage. Did you do it the similar way, or did that completely change your buying style?
It did definitely change our style of buying. It was more just we couldn't get enough stuff from op shops or markets or even just off Instagram and Depop and everything. Once we were selling through everything, it was almost like we needed to just get more and more. And so it was more the supply issue, which meant we had to do buying trips in the end and fly to like the US.
Yeah, so you would kind of start from going to op shops and then going on personal trips and just going to like the little markets. And I'm guessing now that's not sustainable. So are there places that you go now that for someone listening and say they want to grow their business tenfold, what type of places would you suggest they look for?
Definitely the US would be one of the best places for vintage. It's almost like unlimited stock of vintage.
Yeah.
The only issue is it's getting a lot more popular around the world, so it's still
pricey.
Still pricey and harder to find the nicer pieces.
Yeah.
But I'd definitely go to the US. We go to all the markets over there, like LA, Texas, New York.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, you can just walk into markets and you could pick up maybe like 50 real nice items,
Yeah.
like in one day. So that'd be the places to go to. There is like huge warehouses also.
Yeah.
Even if you just search on the internet, you're going to find or follow like other podcasts as well.
Yeah, and people give like a lot of information, like, but unfortunately, a lot of the big warehouses, it kind of doesn't matter how much money you have. Some of them just won't let you in. So, how did you find, like, with kind of coming into that community where it was a little bit closed off? How did you find maneuvering through that?
Yeah, it was pretty hard right at the start because it was all so new to us, and you're in a different country.
Yeah.
It's all a little bit foreign. And yeah, a lot of these big warehouses have just got minimum buys, so you might need $2,000-$3,000. That's even before you step in the door.
Yeah.
And that's upfront payments. So
and in the US or in pounds.
So you got to remember that. So that's could be $4,500.
Yeah.
Before you've even picked one item in their warehouse. And that's not to say you go into the warehouses and you just think, oh, there's going to be amazing stuff. You actually, there could be thousands and thousands of racks of clothing you have to sort through, and some of it is rubbish.
Yeah.
It's not like you just go and it's, I'll get a crazy spell out. So it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
We could spend a whole week in one warehouse just trying to pick, and we could end up with 300, 400 items. That's the kind of scale we're looking at.
And for us, that's not even 1 week worth of stock. So it's a lot of work for 2 weeks. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so you got to be prepared to spend a lot more time. Don't think you're going to go over there in a day and just go, we're just going to pick heaps of vintage. Give yourself time. Go around to the markets, meet the store holders and talk to them, because those guys are vintage heads.
Yeah.
They got knowledge you wouldn't believe, because they're in picking out of rag houses and stuff.
And they're constantly around it. And when you go over there, and when I went over there with you before COVID, you just knew everyone. And I think when you kind of go over there, even if you don't get into the big warehouses or you're not allowed in the secret rooms or whatever, I think just meeting the people gets you through the door. Yeah. But it takes ages.
Yeah, you've got to build relationships. And you just got to, a lot of the vintage guys, they just love talking vintage. So it's not hard to get along with them. So everyone just gets hyped on what pieces. Even when I'm over there picking, I'll wear nice vintage, wrap tees or stuff. So it's a talking point as well. So maybe if you are going to even just local markets in Australia, always wear nice vintage, and people go, oh yeah, he knows what he's
doing. And people appreciate that type of stuff as well. But like you said, the warehouses, I think they suck, because I went in there with you and I was 5 hours in and I was done. Yeah. I was like, no way.
Prepared to get the shoulder burn of going through the racks, and it's dark and dusty, and it's so much different vintage, not just 90s, it's 70s, 80s.
It's because people want there are people who specialize in the 70s stuff. But it is all worth it when you do find a wrap tee or something, just something that's really worth it. Even if it's not worth it, you're just yes, I found something.
Yeah, you could be there all day, and then you that one wrap tee you found and go, yeah, that's just made my day.
Yeah. So, is there anywhere else you go apart from the US?
We do go into the UK, which I mentioned a little bit. We've been to Italy. They got some nice stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of
make a trip to Japan.
Yeah, Japan's pretty close to Australia, so maybe I don't know if they've opened up yet, but fully so. But when they do, that's always a good place. One thing about Japan, they're throwing away stuff quickly because they a big turnover. They don't like all they like is like new stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so a lot of the stuff at the markets is a lot of people's old clothing. So they do have a good supply.
Yeah.
And definitely just do your local markets first to start with if you're a smaller company.
Yeah.
And I'd always suggest like buy the stuff you like. Don't get conned into what everyone else is like talking about.
Yeah.
But definitely look at trends. But you've got to be the one who's selling it, so you got to love the stuff you're selling.
Yeah.
And that'd be like one of my big suggestions for people.
Yeah, so you pretty much, just to recap, you kind of started your vintage journey as a collector and just loved vintage and would wear band tees and all that type of stuff. And then you started this company with Tyler, and you got into it by just doing like kind of reliving your childhood collections, like op shops, markets. And then as Official Vintage got bigger, you needed more stuff. So you started going to the bigger, like more producing places in the world. So like the US, the UK. Is there anything that I missed there, like that you think people, if they were listening to this and they wanted to know where should I get my stuff from?
Yeah, probably another good tip I'd give would be I wouldn't buy big bulk boxes and bales of clothing. Like, yeah, you're getting these huge bales for cheaper prices. It could be like $3 to $10 an item. But then 90% of it is you can't actually sell. And you got to remember sizing. Like a big thing is they give you a lot of small stuff, which is harder to sell. So, yeah, I'd stay away from big bales and big boxes of wholesale. I'd just go and handpick everything yourself. Choose the stuff you like. Don't get caught up with a whole lot of stock you can't sell. So.
Yeah, and we, on that point, we offer a wholesale item as well. If you want to go through that avenue, just message Ashley at officialvintage.com and she sorts out all of our wholesale. We do like a variety of boxes and it's all handpicked, so you get to handpick it over video call.
And it's all similar stuff to what's on our website, so you get an idea on what you're going to get anyway.
Yeah, and we've had a few orders and people have loved it so far. So, so that's really good. Well, thanks for joining us, Stu.
That's all right. Nice to be on.
Appreciate you coming on. Thanks for listening, everyone. Tyler will be back next week, so stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe. You can follow Stu on his personal at Stuart Annan, I believe. And or you can keep up to date with him on our Official Vintage Instagram, so check that out. But thanks for listening. Hopefully next week Tyler will be back. And so see you later, guys.
Cool. Thanks, guys.